an ordinance addressing the enforcement provisions for trailers, semi-trailers, and RVs.
Sorry, looking around for the mayor. He had told me he was going to be here. So with that, I'll kind of start into this. So this is an item that is coming from the mayor. He's going to sponsor it. You guys will see this at study session. So earlier this year, Denver amended their ordinances pertaining to the regulation and enforcement of parking vehicles on their streets. The mayor was concerned that those changes might have ripple impacts into Aurora. So he wanted to make sure that we're amending code to make sure that we are kind of matching and at least as strict on Denver's changes so that we're at least as strict on their ordinances. So we reviewed all of our ordinances associated with this topic. Some of our current ordinances are already stricter than Denver's and require no change. So the proposed amendments in the ordinance that would increase our regulation and response times to parking patterns across the city specifically include: one, authorizing the impoundment of an unlawful vehicle parked on public right-of-way for more than 24 hours rather than 48 hours after being cited as an unlawful vehicle. So from 48 on that. The next is that the weight limit for semi-trailers, trailers, and commercial vehicles in excess of 22 feet in length is reduced to 6,000 pounds from the previous 7,000 pounds to be consistent with the city's UDO and Denver's weight limits. And then finally, recreational vehicles can be parked on the public right-of-way for no more than 24 hours during a 7-day period rather than the previous 5-day period. And so we've been working across all departments. We've had city legal help us draft this. We've got public works parking involved, and the Aurora police department's also been involved. So those are the changes. And since the mayor's here, I'll allow the mayor to kind of give us any other thoughts he has on that. So Mr. Mayor, hopefully I teed that up well for you.
So I think the issue came to light when City County had and passed toughened up its own ordinance relative to these issues. And so I think my concern was that if we don't make ours at least equal to theirs, then there's gonna be migration over to City of Aurora. So so I want to thank staff for working on this and making the appropriate changes.
And so we've been, like I said, as the mayor said, we've been working with him. We've got public works parking here. We've got the police department here. If you all have any questions of the changes we've made, if not, we would like to move this forward to study session and for all the council to understand what's going on.
Is there some protection in there to eliminate someone just backing their vehicle up 15 feet and get another 24 hours out of it?
Scott and PD, you guys want to talk about how we'd handle that one?
Well, I think that's a question for the prosecutor, because we would mark or we would tag it. And if it's moved, I think that's an interpretation of law for the prosecutor. That's what people do. Remember when you do get those little dot marks, people just remove it. Now you don't have evidence that they left and they came back. Or law department. Sorry.
I think they're gonna have pictures. So, I mean, that's the other thing. If they move it and it's in the same vicinity, it'll be fine. I think it doesn't.
We've got Scott back there.
Yeah, Scott, don't they take photos yet?
Hi, Scott Bauman, Park Aurora. So yes, we digitally chalk the car. So we take a photograph of it, we GPS mark it, and we mark the valve stems on the car. So like 4 o'clock, the front tire, the back tire. So we know exactly where it's at. So if it is moved, then in most cases it's then lawful again, and we'll re-chalk it again. But we know if it's been moved or not.
And the ordinance also requires if it's an unlawful vehicle, it has to be removed completely from the public right of way. So it can't just be moved in a certain distance. It's gotta be off the road.
So like expired tags, stuff like that. Expired tags, is that what makes it an unlawful vehicle, or?
An unlawful vehicle can be a vehicle that it's legally inoperable, like has expired license plates, or it's apparently inoperable due to its condition. So it has either of those.
Perfect. I think we will move it forward. Awesome.
Thank you.
Item 4B, public safety action plan update.
This one. Item 1 is on our crime reduction and staffing. So you kind of see where we're at in terms of our staffing, I will tell you that we are, our patrol units are continuing to be really taxed. It's one of the main concerns we're hearing from our districts is that patrol is significantly impacted. So we're seeing, some issues with patrol. So that's, been a lot of focus in terms of trying to work with them in terms of what we're seeing and hearing there. You kind of see the specialty units there. And then in terms of the academies, you'll see the numbers there. Chief, I don't know if we want to give an update in terms of the current recruiting we're doing for our September academy.
Sure. First of all, I wanted to say, the mayor and council and the Civil Service Commission, we are now doing our really hiring in terms of recruiting and hiring. I think that that's given us the flexibility going forward. HR hired someone named Sarah. Sarah around? She's our hero. Right now, we sent about 78
70 plus.
70 plus position backgrounds, and we are on task to have at least 40 the September class. And that's probably as many or not more than we had all last year. So the person that's been hired by the city knew how she was stealing our bodies, our candidates, and now we were able to bring her over here. And I think that we can replicate this in the upcoming months. We're going to be in really good shape.
So if they start the academy in September, when will they graduate?
I have to go with March.
March.
So that's going to be a huge, huge plus. The other thing is we're going to continue with recruit modified classes, and in terms of our modified classes have been really helpful they've been very diverse to help us become more diversified. So we're really hopeful, and I think that we're starting to see what's coming out of this. We're going to start going the right trajectory. Excited. Everybody's excited. But we're not going to declare victory until we've replicated 2 or 3 classes. Go ahead.
One of the big things is that with having such a increased number of people in the class, the question is, oh, you must have lowered your standards. And we're not lowering our standards. We're not going to lower our standards to build
Speeding up the process.
Right.
Really, it's, as you guys talked about during, a lot of your support from council getting the resolution passed on having civil service rules changed. In essence, we were before, the Civil Service Commission was waiting to give a conditional offer until everything was done. 6 to 8 months later, we are now doing it much earlier in the process. So now the individuals, instead of getting swooped up by another agency, we're getting them up ahead and we're moving faster through the process. So what we were kind of talking about, what we're going to see is, I think probably one of the biggest agencies is going to be mad at us, Denver, because they were getting a lot of our recruit. Now we're getting them higher up in the process. So as Chief said, it's going to be one of those going back and forth on, it was Sarah, which is great, right? About who's going to keep it going faster stuff, because we have such a limited, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I know for a fact we lost so many candidates because our process was just simply way too long and people were like, I need a job. So, yeah.
So then before we move off, one thing I'd be remiss if I didn't note on the training piece, a really big department effort to get through use of force policy training. And so that's underway and I think moving forward really quickly. So we're excited for that. That's a major milestone for the consent decree that, getting the use of force policy updated and then trained. And so really big effort previously and sort of finishing it up to make sure we get everybody trained on the new use of force policy. So
Jason, quick question on, and because you mentioned the consent decree, with the changes now in place on the civil service, will we get in the next report a sufficient compliance note from them on that? Are they happy with it? And
I think, as a matter of fact, they're in town this week. They are meeting with Sarah, I think later this week, as I just talked to Sarah yesterday. So we anticipate that, but obviously after they talk to Sarah and kind of see this process, they'll let us know if they have questions or concerns. They presented they did a report on the promotional process. They reported on that earlier this week at Civil Service Commission. So I think we're anticipating that we'll be compliant on that requirement within the decree.
And as we're going through, we're what were they doing reports twice a year now. So the report 5 is scheduled to come out October. So they'll do a presentation to council and everything else. So I think we're looking for a lot of good movement on our mandates.
And most important, I think we've agreed that I'd rather miss a deadline. It's short, but we don't want to miss there. sure it's right, and see if we're doing it right, so. And the monitor's been very, I think, accommodating when we show him, why we want to extend, and he's been.
Anything else on first topic? Second topic is our crime rates. So crime continues to trend in the right direction. So you kind of see there for the 4-week period. Previously, we're seeing things continue to trend down. Year to date, things are down. They continue to be down. So lots of hard work on the department, moving that in the right direction. Obviously, any crime is too much crime. The numbers are still too high, but we are moving in the right direction. So any questions on crime? Chief, anything from you or your staff to kind of just update in terms of some of the different efforts underway?
Well, I just think that the technology that you all have allowed us now, Fusus or in the process to deploy is going to be a huge crime fighting tool it's like virtual pursuits. It's going to have a phenomenal. Sure. Excellent. Just met with Scott there, meeting, talking about it done sooner than later. So that's what you're doing. And I know there's a lot of questions from the council, and I really look forward to coming back and presenting to you how it works and what we did, what we were able to do.
Anything else on that? All right, the third one's youth violence. I'm going to turn it over to Joseph and Chief Hildebrand to give us an update on SAVE and just all our efforts in that area.
Sure. Good morning, council. So we had our consultants, National Network of Safe Communities, NNSC, here with us last week doing trainings on the ground. Went very well, lots of community involvement, lots of law enforcement, council, so thank you for those who were able to attend. We've started identifying individuals to bring into the program, and we're starting to work on our custom notifications for those individuals. So we will be meeting with our consultants next week to go over kind of specific scripts, those types of things, some examples, so we can actually start going out to these youth for some custom notifications and bring them into the program and start providing those services for them. We had a press release for Aurora Save on Tuesday. So just been lots of media requests about that. It's been very well received so far from the community, which is great. So we're just continuing to build our support and outreach committee. So we have some redundancy built in a little bit just to make sure that we're covering all bases in terms of services, resources that the individuals and their families might need. Chief Hildebrand, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, we really got that groundwork set. We had, the rollout, a lot of good media coverage about it. Really right now, the last two components is one, just keep doing the work, which we've set up the structure. We're going to start doing those custom notifications and call-ins. You'll see that happening over the next month to 2 months. We'll start seeing more and more of those occurring, and then get that evaluation component. That's really going to be important because we want to be able to show the community council that those monies are being used and they're having a positive impact. And we also need that because if we're not seeing the trends that we want to see, we can make those adjustments to the approach real time. So we're really excited to get this moving forward, and we have a shoot review today, and this is going to be a real kickoff point for really looking at identifying individuals that will participate in this.
One more thing, Chair. We're also in the late stages of creating our crime gun intelligence center that is being spearheaded by the Raven Task Force, and that is going to be that's kind of like a forensic DNA lab that is going to help us really further combat the gun crimes. Not just the city, but in this region, because most of these crooks are involved in this kind of activity throughout the metro. That should be up with me. Hopefully in the next 8 weeks, it'll be it's going to be just another phenomenal, successful story for us. A city in the region.
We can staff that.
Yes, it's with current staffing, so we'll be in good shape. It's really a forensic tool.
We also have significant grant funding. We got approved for the grant. We had to put together a strategic plan. Those grant funds are buying the machines for us to do our own NIBIN analysis, forensic analysis for ballistics, and also staffing it with analysts.
we're going to basically use some of our current staff to kind of start doing some of the NIBIN-related CJIP, Crime Gun Intelligence Center activities, because those investigative leads are, right now, there's a delay in getting those to the investigators so they can work them. So it's really gonna compress that time frame. One of the things we're doing is to get shell casings in faster, is we're creating a process where patrol officers can just throw them in an envelope, drop them off at the headquarters, and they don't have to do the property sheets. That's gonna streamline that because they're collecting casings all the time, and that's a cumbersome process. So that's gonna be more efficient, and then that team will actually take those casings, get them inputted, get them into property. Guns that are seized are gonna get input, test fires and input into the system almost immediately. We expect to have results potentially within 4 hours of seizing a firearm to see if that gun's linked to other crimes. So that's a powerful tool we're gonna have here in Aurora.
And that PSP partnership is just another, I think, win for us because of PSP partnerships. So the youth initiatives we're about to start, it's just been a blessing for us as a city. PSP.
Question regarding personnel as a possible support idea. Just yesterday, for the first time, I'd heard about the Colorado Rangers. It's a multi-jurisdictional post-certified law enforcement group formed back in the late 1800s in Colorado. I think there's about 60 of them, and they need to fulfill certain hours of volunteer time. Is it possible to plug someone like that into any positions?
Yeah, so there's several cities that have partnered with the Rangers, and that's who a lot of cities use for their reserve police force. That those are the kind of contracts that they put out. So I'm certain that those conversations are going to be in the works, but we're just getting this off the ground. But we're aware that the Rangers exist, and that's what they do, is help fill reserve units for police departments.
And so, Dr. May, we're not using them.
Well, we're just passed. It's the first reading of the reserve force. We just passed it. We have to vote on it again.
So if I may, Madam Chair, so very well aware of the Colorado Rangers. One of the, I don't want to call it an issue, but there is, because they're not connected to one department, right? There's a limited amount of control that a large city like Aurora can do. If we had fun and great, I mean, they're a great volunteer organization, it's great, but it's like with having our own, as we are looking towards, she will have control over that. We'll be able to pick and choose who would be able to do it. So, but if we have a big widespread event, I mean, I know Chief is aware that they have like a big parade or whatever, they can come and help. I've seen them in Denver. So, yeah, just learning about them.
Next one is on our mental health programs, and so you all want to give an update on CRT?
Sure. So as a follow-up, Councilmember Sundberg, to your question from last committee meeting, we had a meeting with the Walk-In Center, and we kind of started the conversations about a more streamlined process in our crisis response. There was a very productive meeting. We are currently pushing out a series of videos to patrol and the fire department on how to better respond to mental health calls, just kind of nuanced things about mental health and how to help them better, give better outcomes. And then next week, we are traveling to Disneyland for a conference for the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals to talk about our program that we help people learn how to build programs like ours.
I'm available.
So actually it's up, that's, you're on the fifth one, so if you go back to the fourth one, you can see we had 309 calls for service. You kind of see the call dispositions on that one, how they were resolved, so.
Which is significantly up from last year.
One question on that. So have we been able to maintain the full staffing on our clinicians?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, that partnership is continuing to be really good, so we're excited. Okay, and then the last one for Area 5 are the our homeless cleanups. And so Emma, Jessica?
Just behind you.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Emma.
Yeah, as you can see, we're pretty on par with the amount of notifications we've been receiving. 41 is pretty high for us for the amount of abatements conducted. And my staff Darius has been working really hard to get folks into pallets. We've also been in some conversations with folks in Arapahoe County, just continually talking about that 225 in Parker area, as we know that's a concern for many, many people, including you all. So we're still in conversations about that. We've also been talking with CDOT. It's just an ongoing conversation because it's such a complicated area to figure out how we can help resolve some of those issues. And I am in the process of hiring for my second abatement liaison, and I have 3 interviews today. And I have a couple more candidates that I'm gonna try to screen depending on how those interviews go today, so should have that staffed soon.
One question on the abatement, the contractors. What is the current staffing on that? Do we need more? Could we use more?
The contractors, so
To actually do the abatement,
yeah, so our contractor is Keeson.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, they haven't talked to me about any staffing issues. We haven't had any issues with them not being able to come out and do an abatement.
So
We haven't.
we did do a couple things with them. So they, we expanded the number of days. I think we added a day of the week that we would do abatements on. And then we did increase the amount of the contract that we were doing with Keeson. So we've expanded, both the number of days a week that they'll do it. And then we did expand the dollar amount.
That was based on the
Yes.
May 15th study session with council. We increased the amount, I think it was $50,000 with them. And we hadn't completed their agreement yet for the next 12 months, so we were easily able to add that in.
Did that, and the other one too, since it's up here and we talk about CDOT, we do have an IGA with CDOT, obviously, for them to reimburse when we do cleanups with them, and I think we are, where are we at? So if we were gonna go back.
We had a $65,000 cap with them on an annual basis, and so it's part of our conversation with them. We have ongoing with them about signage and changes to signage, increasing the amount of our current IGA, and then an additional IGA, which will probably be coming to you as a 3-part IGA with CDOT, Aurora, and Arapahoe County. And so we had a meeting with them yesterday. So we've kind of 3 things we're working on with CDOT right now.
We'll work on that. We'll continue. So any questions on minutes? Okay, so that's it in terms of that item.
So we can go into miscellaneous matters. I know we have a few, first Councilmember Sundberg couldn't open the backup in eScribe this morning.
No, I'm sorry. Not eScribe, that wasn't the issue.
Oh.
However, e-discovery, I wanted to know about the implementation of e-discovery. That's been a few months since I've been fired.
Yes, thank you. We are underway with working on the digital evidence portion of e-discovery. So this week we've started sending that out. Still the things that we're receiving from APD records in paper, but we've gotten a good start on that. And so we appreciate the help from council and also APD records. We've been working with E911 and the digital discovery unit to get all that coordinated.
So it's been purchased then? And I'm sorry.
So 2 different things. We have the case management system that's being built for the city attorney's office.
Okay.
That will help us with our internal workflow. So that they are working on, have been working on, that contract was signed. And so they're building that, which will look similar to the CDAC system that all of the DAs in the state work on. And then the other separate contract that has been signed and that we're working with is the e-discovery Axon that does e-discovery. There is a Justice Premier is the prosecutor portion of e-discovery. So that is just a storage for the digital evidence. So body worn camera, videos, photos, that digital portion of evidence for cases. So that is what we have gotten up and running, done training, and we're working through all of how E911, digital evidence, and APD records can all send things into that. And then we're able to send that portion out electronically to defense attorneys, public defenders, pro se defendants.
Okay, is there a completion date in mind for it all to be implemented?
So we have started this week, Monday, started sending out the discovery portion, the digital discovery portion. And when we get the case management system, which they are working on, and I do not have a date, hopefully in the near future, then we're hoping to be able to send out the rest of the documents, that we would start being able to receive those electronically and also send those out electronically.
Can I get a quick update on the pilot program we're doing for the subpoenas for police officers? Is that working?
I can
that you've got on. We have now got, I believe, about 2 months, and I don't think we've had any issues. I think Julie has just a couple more check boxes she needs to do with some of the victim advocates or the people on her side. I'm hoping that we can roll this out here in the next week or two. I was gonna loop in with her after this meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just gonna loop in with her after this meeting. I think we're gonna be able to turn that on, and what that will be is we'll now be able to allow officers to, on the day of a subpoena, to remotely check in
Right.
through a subpoena. They'll put their phone number in, they will get texts and or phone calls if their case is going. So if they go home, they go to bed, they'll get those text messages to either to their phone, their spouse's phone, wake them up, and then they can come to court. But I think we've got a good plan in progress, and we've had really no hiccups in it since we've got IT to kind of go in there and fix a couple things for us.
Can I just really, Madam Chair, I can check, I think the judge, the prosecutor, Scott's team, everybody was involved.
Court IT, yeah, court IT was really big in terms of building that.
Everybody was just, the officer really excited about not sitting in the parking lot for hours just to be called off. It just shows that it's a team
Yeah,
here.
that's why I'm really shocked that it took this long for the city to get there. I'm really glad that we're standing up for our officers. How are we doing on the jail drop off?
So a few different areas on that. I'll let Candace talk in. So we've had some good meetings with Candace and the chief's office and I and city legal. So a few different components of that. So one of those is essentially detainee personal property. We've got that down to where I think we're gonna be able to try and get that handed off in the Sally Port or something. Essentially, the officers can inventory it on camera, bag it up, and then.
Yeah, I thought we were starting that. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago and I thought it was last week we were supposed to start it. Has that started?
You know, I think we were looking and we needed to get more bags that were larger size, so we ordered them. I have to check on that.
That one's almost there, so that's a big one that'll help our officers with that. The next one is, we're moving from, officers having to do a full report to just do an affidavit of probable cause. We've got to work some IT issues on the back end so that they can get the affidavit, that it links to the bails, bonds system, and then that'll allow that to kick off. But those discussions were productive. We've just got to finish working through that piece of it. So that's there. And then the next thing we're doing, which is a little bit longer term, is we are going to work to get evidence lockers. So not detainee personal property, but if there's evidence, the officers will be able to check the evidence into at the detention center rather than having to go back to the district or go over to headquarters to use the same lockers. Those are three big areas we're working at. One of them, we're almost there. The other one, we've got a little bit of work on the IT side back end to do it. And then the third one is probably a little bit more in terms of getting them ordered. We've then got to get them set up. We've got to get cameras on them. So in terms of the evidentiary, full chain of custody, we've just got to make sure we have that. That's probably a little bit longer term solution.
And there's something else we're going to Chief Morris and Pete actually experienced when they booked their own prisoner. We'll talk about Campbell and the overtime.
Right, so one of the pieces that we had was we had an officer that's actually working in the jail that's helping assist with some of the things that need to be done, like their arrest booking. And so Pete and I on Saturday night, when we made an arrest, that was hugely helpful in terms of time because officers there working and helped us with the paperwork that he could help us with.
Yeah, we were, and the other thing, Madam Chair, is that the PD has done a good job working with the judicial districts on a new affidavit that we were actually able to use Saturday night, and it was a lot faster than the previous version. So
This came from the Chiefs Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
Established that solutions aren't necessarily with us, it's with the men and women in the front lines that are actually doing the work, and it's their idea, they put it together. We empowered them to go out and meet with the DA's offices, and both judicial districts accepted it, so that's going to be another huge win for us.
So with us, with having the officer worded, I want to claim that we didn't get special treatment because Deputy Chief Morris was with us, but we were able to get in and out in 45 minutes. All the reports were done, so.
Undercover. Right along and end up in jail. I'm going.
Undercover.
I'm a fast typer allegedly, so.
Pretty good assessment.
Whatever we have to do, I'm getting in that jail.
And certainly the circumstances that we had with the prisoner that we had on the arrest, everyone's different. Some of them are different, and so some can certainly take longer depending on what all is happening for that.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some of them come in with massive amounts of property,
Yeah.
so.
It's a different ballgame.
Yeah, and I've seen that, and I take that into inspiration for sure, because I've seen that.
We have a meeting with the chief judge in the 18th on Monday as well, just to work through any paperwork issues so that we're all on the same page, both here with our court and there.
That's great. That's really great. Those are probably my two biggest things. The PD with getting those accomplished. Do you want to introduce?
Yeah, Michelle, you want to go ahead and introduce our new police auditor?
Yeah, so Michelle Crawford, city auditor. So Terrence McCray is taking over as the city's police auditor. You can stand up and you want to give him a quick background?
My name is Terrence McCray. I just retired from active duty, 24 years. My background is criminal investigation, so I was a special agent with Army CID. My last 7 years was special agent in charge down at Fort Carson, where we covered Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming. And prior to that, I was a SAC down in Texas, San Antonio. So we covered everything South Texas, so Austin, Houston, south of El Paso and down. So glad to be retired, glad to be here, and I look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does fire have anything? Any updates on fire?
I do.
All
We
right.
have someone to welcome as well.
Okay.
Our strategic communications officer, Don Small, started this week. As you know, when we went to a professional communications officer, our communications have been much more accurate and much more professional. We're really proud to have Don. Do you want to introduce yourself just a bit?
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Dawn Small. 25 years of communications and marketing experience. Most recently was with the city of Centennial. Happy to be here.
Welcome. Does anybody else have anything they would like? Yeah.
Just a quick update. I know it's gonna come out, but we went live with putting a warrant look up for the for our warrants in the city of Aurora. We also have links on that page to all the other sites that allow that. So we're hoping that'll help with transparency and also allowing defendants the opportunity to look up and see if they need to deal with their case before they're arrested. So we're hoping that that's helpful.
This is something we've heard from the community a few times, which is, if they get pulled over for a traffic stop and then they're getting arrested for a warrant, they're like, how would I even know that? And so, this was something
That's a thing.
that's the thing. So yeah, so we were, kudos to Candace and her team for getting that done. It's something we've heard from the community. It's something we actually heard from some of our police officers as well, that they brought forward that they had heard from the community. So we think this is a great step. So good job. Thank you.
Awesome, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and we hope to pretty soon have our live docket online as well, so people who don't remember when their court date is can look and see if they're on court and on the docket for that day. So we're looking at ways to kind of increase our resources for everybody online.
Awesome. Anything else? Of course.
First, I want to say Virgil Majors actually worked on that for about 3 years. Reagan kind of reminded me, and that just speaks to his, he's just a very creative
Very
person.
passionate.
And I want to just point out Lieutenant Kerrigan and his team, they do a lot with little. They're a small unit, but they're mighty. They continue to work the street issues with the street racers and everything else. They had a really good arrest a couple weeks ago that was one of the leaders of the pack. It's getting us a lot of intelligence, and hopefully we'll be able to deal with that. And we will be out there the 19th in operation, right? The 19th?
We continue to do operations throughout the season. I'd be really remiss to talk about any large operations we're doing.
These guys are sleeping in. So I would okay, the next time we have one, I will put it out to you all. Okay, I will be out there with them hopefully. And you're all, any one of you are welcome to come to see how we operate.
Okay. Perfect. Last call. Anybody else? The next meeting is going to be September 14th. There's a time change. It's going to be at 1 p.m. So make sure you all have that new time change. September 14th at 1 p.m. It will be here, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
That's great.
Probably around.
I
I know, who's next?
I know, I was meeting. Warrant lines up. My office. Oh, my, not even from